Lesson 4. Start off by setting your working directory. I have mine separated into separate ones. You may have only one directory. We have a new part, and this one is going to be a clamp. And again, you can put in a unique name if you wish. I'm going to use the default template. Okay. And let's go to our View tab and turn on our datum features to make sure we have our tags on. We will go over to the tree filters and make sure all of our display options are checked. And we're going to go File, Prepare, Model Properties. The material, we'll select steel. You can double click or move it over with the arrows. And our units in this case are metric. So select metric units, set. You can choose either one of these, but in most cases, in order to avoid any problems, select the bottom one. Close. Close. And if we go into Tools and click on Feature for information, we may have to open up the panel. Let's see. Let's choose Model. Shows we have millimeters and we have steel set. I accidentally told you to do the feature. If you do the feature, you've got to select something. So that will tell you that this is a datum plane if you do it that way. Select one item at a time. Put your cursor up in the tool chest here, and let's turn on all of our items. And let's put the location of this on the bottom of the screen. I like to put it in the very bottom inside the, let's show it here, in the status bar. That's what I prefer. Takes it out of the graphics area, but we'll leave it in the graphics area this time. So, repaint. Another thing I want to do is I want to look at the file options and work my way down. We have our environment. Click Save Display with Model. System colors, we're going to go with the default. You can change some of these if you wish. I wouldn't change them too radically. Model display, we'll keep it at trimetric right now. Silhouette edges, let's kick up the quality to 50. And shade very small surfaces. This is very useful. Entity display, let's go to very high for the edges, dimmed for the tangencies. If you click Show Smooth Lines, it'll make the lines quite thick on the edge. Some people like it. You can turn it on if you wish. Selection, we'll leave that unchecked, unchanged. Sketcher, here let's turn on our Show Grid and our Snap to Grid. Normally I work with this off, but a lot of people like to have the grid on. Now if we make the sketching plane parallel to the screen, it'll automatically go into 2D Sketcher rather than the staying in the rotated or spun view. So let's check that and watch what happens. Yeah, assembly stays the same. Sheet metal we're not working with. Customize screen. We see that these are the items that are in the main tab. We'll leave them like they are. You can add new ones in there if you wish. And you have your quick axis toolbar up on the top here. And you can add items to that if you wish. something that you use a lot. Let's go down the list here. Design part. If we click in here, we can see all commands. You can see there's quite a few to choose from. One of the ones I might like to have is delete old versions. Not delete all versions, but delete old versions. So let's add that one over there. Let's see what else we have. Click OK. Click No. So it doesn't, it only is this session. It won't go into your config file. So we have everything set up at this point. We didn't choose a new model color yet. We'll do that after the first component. So let's go over to the Model tab, and we're going to click on Sketch, and we're going to pick the front datum plane to sketch on. Close the dialog. You can see we have a grid, and right mouse button, and let's put in a construction center line. In the book it will say center line. Same thing. And I'm going to hold down my shift key and my middle mouse button and just reposition a little bit, and then zoom in and out a little bit until I get a good view of the screen. So I've got my center line there. I'm going to click anywhere on the screen. Center line was when we first created it, it was selected as green. Hit your left mouse button to to deselect it. Right mouse line chain. I'm going to come up 3. I'm going to go over 4. I'm going to go up 5. Now the reason I did that is if I stop here at 4, then L1 and L1 equal each other. Stop here at 3, then the two vertical ones equal each other. It's not a big deal. We can shut that off. But for our purposes right now, let's just select it like this. And we're going to go over, have same amount of grid spacing on each side, snap. So here you can see you want this not to be equal here to the vertical. We want it to be vertical to the other horizontal ledge. Down, all the way back to the origin here, or I should say the beginning, not the origin. The origin is over here. Middle mouse button twice, and it will shade the part. Now we've got one good dimension here. So if you click on that one, actually we have two. We can move this one over. You'll notice it's stuck on the grid. This one thing I don't like about using the grid. So let's go File, Options, Sketcher, and let's turn off the grid. And while we're at it, let's go into the model display and change it into isometric for the orientation. This will be the default orientation. Click No. Now, this dimension for the distance and for the height, if you click on one and hold down your control key and click on the other one, right mouse button, first of all it's rounding. You can turn off the rounding if you want. We're going to make these strong, which means they are design dimensions. You'll see that the color is slightly changed from the others. Leave these dimensions as weak. They're going to disappear as we put in new constraints. Now we do need a dimension for the height. So right mouse button, dimension, click on the bottom reference, and on the top of the part, sketch. And you'll notice that the dimension over here disappeared. Now we want to get rid of this half dimension. We're going to do that by adding a constraint. You can try up here, and you can try your right mouse button and see what you have. You don't have the constraints there. Click on Symmetric. Select the center line, that's very important, and hit the two endpoints. Without the center line, you can't do this. Sorry, we have a phone call here. So we have our symmetry, got all the dimensions that we need. We don't have the dimension values. So I'm going to refit and I used my middle mouse button, I clicked it, and that activated the select filter here. So I'm going to use a window to capture everything. There are other ways to do it. You can collect all geometry by selecting here. Right mouse button, and we're going to modify. And always expand your modify menu, the dialog, so you can see everything. And I know that this long dimension here is 123. We'll go back and check to see if I'm correct on that. So it is 123. Here's our dimensions. Now, in this case, I didn't lock the scale, and see what happens? I'm going to undo that one. So if I lock the scale and I change that to 123, hit enter, check. Go into Control D for standard orientation. You'll see it's not a trimetric anymore, it's an isometric. And then I have to clean up some of the dimensions. The dimensions aren't correct. So I have 73 and 52. And I think I have 23 for the ledge over here. All right, so all the dimensions are correct, and the dimension values or design values are correct. Right mouse button OK, or click OK in the dashboard. Now, all we're going to get is a sketch. And if you look over here in the model tree, you'll see the sketch shown. You'll notice that it's active and you can see it. So it'll be, you need to select it, and we're going to click on extrude, and it's going to use that sketch for the extrusion. And basically we would want to make this symmetric, so you can right mouse button symmetric, and of course you can always go to your menu up here and do the same thing. You're going to see that under the placement tab it is linked to that sketch right here. And as I recall, the depth of this is going to be 70. So either up in the dashboard here or directly on the model, type 70, hit enter, and check to complete it. Now let's change the color, view, appearance gallery. Not sure which one I like actually. I usually don't like any of them. So let's make it green. And in the green, click the appearance, right mouse button, edit, and let's tame that green down a little bit. Remember, pastels work a lot better. You can click on the highlighter, like so, and close. Let's go and also turn our display style into shading with edges. You can see the black edges a little bit now. Looks a little bit better. And we've got our first feature there. Now the second feature has the exact same shape. And if you notice that the sketch here is grayed out now, in other words, it's hidden. So if we click on that and we unhide, it's selected. And if we go back to our model tab, I'm going to click on extrude, remove material. See what it did? It actually pulled the whole thing in because it's cutting it all back using the sketch, which is the same size. So placement, and click on unlink. We want to disconnect it from that original sketch. Yes. And then if you take and grab some of these endpoints, you'll see that you can actually get your sketch to cut. Right mouse button over the drag handle through all. I think I got it. No, it didn't give it to me all. Oh, it's because I'm going through the one plane. So if we go under options, through all, and through all on the other side, you'll see that it goes all the way through. Now you can continue to adjust this by dragging the endpoints, but it would be better to just right mouse button, edit the internal sketch, and you'll see that it turned the model automatically because we set that up when we were in the file options. We've got all the dimensions that are necessary. The values are slightly wrong. So we want 40. This is 13. And the other two, the height is 30 and 54. And then move them outside the face of the sketch. Like so. You can rotate the model. Right mouse button, OK, and you have your cut. So we didn't have to sketch twice because we used the sketch of the first. Let's complete this and take a look. We use this sketch. Now if you don't want to see that sketch anymore, you can always click on it and you can still hide it so you don't see the original sketch. These extrudes have a sketch inside. That one is still connected, and this one is using this sketch, but then it unlinked it, so it used the same size. We then adjusted the size. Standard orientation. Oops, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Default. Now if we like a different view, let's say for instance we want to have a view of the bottom a little bit. How about like this? So maybe we want to work on the bottom. So we can reorient. Click on Saved Views, and in this case we're going to change the default orientation to this one. Right now it's set as the same as standard orientation, and we'll click on Set. Oops, sorry. Rotate it, and then Save. It's going to ask you, do you really want to override it? Yes, we do. Click OK. And let's go back and look at our choices now. So we have our right view, we have our standard view, and we have our new bottom default view. So we'll go back to the standard view to start off with. Now, we want to make a little cut, and that cut is 20 by 20. And we're going to have to choose where we're going to cut from. So the question is, do we want to cut on this face down? Do we want to cut on this face up? Or do we want to cut, as our first reference, the datum plane and then up? And the answer is datum plane. That's the earlier feature. Therefore, it's a better choice. Go back to my standard orientation. So, deselect, extrude, remove material, click on the datum plane. Now we need some references. We've got a reference here, got a reference over here. We need a reference along the side here, so I'll have you click on it. And when you do, it's going to say surface. I prefer normally to turn my model and then select. Go back into my sketch view. So I'm going to need a center line. Right mouse button, construction center line. Middle mouse button to end it. And right mouse button, corner rectangle. And if I'm careful here, I'll get my symmetry. And you'll notice that my color choice might have been better. Green is used for other items, for instance, the constraints. Mouse button, it shaded it. And we have two dimensions. Now we can keep these 2 dimensions. This one's going to be 20. And instead of bothering to change the other one, what if we want to make them equal? So go up to the equal option in the constraints and click on the 2. So now they're both 20 and you only need 1 dimension. Could have kept the other dimension. We chose this one. Now, Control D. Now the question is here, when you finish the sketch, which way is the arrow going to go? So let's go over to our new view, which is our default view, and click on the arrow. And we can go way up here if we want and make it through all. Or we can go to extrude to the next or select it. I'm going to rotate this around and zoom up. Put my cursor here, and I can also get it here, of course, to next or to selected. And then I'm going to select this surface right here. So it limits my cut. Check. Control D. Now it's still highlighted. And when it's highlighted, it means something is selected. That is the feature that's selected. And the mirror tool becomes active when you have something selected. So I'm going to select the mirror tool. I'm going to click on the right datum plane. This will not preview it for you. Check. And you have the other cut on the other side. Control D. Make sure you save your part. Now, we'll do a couple of extra things here. What if we want to put a hole down the middle? So let's gather our front, hold down your control key and your right datum plane. Select the hole tool. I did it differently. I said the hole tool, but I was going to put in an axis. So I don't have an axis there to work with right now. So let's cancel that one out and start again. The front and the right, and let's put an axis in first, and then come over and select the hole tool. Hold down your control key and you can see that we are looking for a second placement selection, which is the top. Right mouse button, let's just go to next. And let's make this 20 for the whole diameter. How about adding some rounds? The rounds that you add, it depends on how you select them, what the feature is going to look like. So if we selected edges here before we selected vertical edges, the corners would look different. We'll only put rounds on the top. So click on the first feature, move your cursor until the edge is selected. Click on that. Hold down your shift key and pick the whole top. So you pick the surface. This is a surface selection. It's a loop. Right mouse button, round, and drag this out. Middle mouse button. Now, one of the things you can do is, let's go back over to our view and our appearance gallery, and right mouse button on the green, edit, and let's go over and select transparency and put about 30 in the transparency approximately, so that we can see. Actually, that's kind of a lot, so maybe around 20 is better. That way you can see inside the model a little bit through it, each one of the features. Now let's go back to our standard orientation, and also let's select a new display style, which is shading with reflections. Now let's change the view to the default orientation that we had created, and you'll see that it doesn't work with that. If you rotate your model, you'll start to see the reflection as it gets closer to the default or I should call it the standard orientation. Again, it's cute, but I'm not quite sure what good it is. I'm going to turn that off and go in and standard orientation again. Make sure you save your part. Let's look at a few more things. Under the model tab, you have a variety of things we can do. We could draft something, but let's take a look at analysis. How about diameter? And click on the hole, and it'll give you the size. You can repeat that, and let's say we want to get the distance, and we want to get the distance from how about this surface to this surface, so it's 45 millimeters. How about volume? Just click on it, it'll give you the volume of the part. Area, click on the face, and it'll calculate the area for you. And let's close that one. Click on annotation. It's a little hard to see because of our color, but as you put your cursor through here, you'll see that these were the annotation features where they will go if you put one in there. How about render? And let's click on render window. Might have to zoom out a little bit and then render the window again. We'll do more on this at some other point. Under tools, let's click on model, and you'll see that all of the different items are there now. Every one of the features that you created. And repaint. And let's go to the model player, select that, roll it back, and click slowly through, and you'll see we have our default features, and we have our first feature. Here's our dimensions. Second feature, dimensions. Third feature. And finally the last one. Now, if we wanted to make an edit on here, let's double click on that cut and make it 25. Enter. Click twice, and it changed the size on both ends of it. So you can drag your insert here down to have it regenerate everything. And we'll undo that. Control D, save your part, and this concludes the lesson.